Hey, 8th graders. So if you're reading really carefully, there's a typo on the screen and it should be 2.7, solving equations using the distributive property. PowerPoint won't let me change at the moment, but that's not necessary for you to know. In the past, we've talked about two-step equations and having to combine like terms and then solve. Last time we were together, we had a variable on both sides. So here we're going to be using that distributive property. If you have forgotten the distributive property since we talked about it in 2.3, do go back to your 2.3 notes and you can refresh yourself on how the distributive property works. Let's get down to it. All right, example 1. The first step here, I know I need to do the distributive property when I have a coefficient multiplying times an expression within parentheses. So in this case, I have 4 times the quantity 8 minus c. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to distribute. And that's going to be my first step. So I'm going to take 4 times 8, which is 32. And then I'm going to take, because to distribute means to multiply equally through the parentheses, I'm going to take the 4 times, and remember I think of it as negative c, so 4 times that negative 1c is going to give me a negative 4c. And so now I have on the left-hand side 32 minus 4c, and I'm just going to write equals 8c plus 16 minus 6c. Now, from here, I'm going to look at it. Over here, there's nothing to combine. But on the right, I have 8c and negative 6c, and they are on the same side of the equal sign. So remember, if it helps, you can draw a line through the equal sign and say, okay, am I crossing over to combine like terms, or if I'm staying on the same side? And here, my like terms are on the same side. So that's what we call combining like terms. So the 32 minus 4c stays on the left, and on the right I'm going to do 8c minus 6c, which is 2c, and we keep the plus 16. So again, I could combine those two without changing signs because they're on the same side of the equal sign. We only change the sign when we cross over the equal sign. So I always like to start with my letters. So I need to move my c's to the same side. This one's a negative 4c and this one's a positive 2. So I prefer to make things positive. So where this is negative 4, I'm going to add 4c to both sides. If you decided to subtract 2c, you're fine. You're going to end up with the same answer in the end. But this is just the way Mrs. Cartwright prefers to do it. So we're doing the addition property of equality here. That allows me to add 4c to both sides. And I'll be left with 32 equals 2 plus 4 is 6c plus 16. So now we're at what looks like our two-step equations, right? So I want to zero out my constant. So this is plus 16. So I'm going to do the opposite, which is to subtract equally to both sides. So that's what we call our subtraction property of equality. And so then 32 minus 16 is 16 equals 6c. And then I want to make this only 1c, so we're going to use our division property of equality. We're going to divide both sides by 6. And so then 16 divided by 6 isn't an even whole number. And so we're just going to divide by the biggest number that goes into both, which is 2. So I'm going to divide both the numerator and the denominator by 2, in which I get 8 thirds. And so that's what c equals. Now, if you've forgotten, that's an improper fraction. And so sometimes Math Excel is going to say give the improper fraction answer. Sometimes it may say give the integer or mixed number. So you've got to read, especially down at the answer. Normally it'll have like, blue writing to indicate like whether it's looking for an integer a whole number, a fraction, an improper fraction versus a mixed number. So this is improper. If it wants a mixed number, remember we're going to do 8 divided by 3. 3 goes into 8 2 times, which is 6. 8 minus 6 is 2. So we have a remainder. So when we rewrite this, we have a whole number, right? C could also equal 2 is our whole number. Our remainder is 2 over our divisor, which is 3. So we end up with 8/3 is equal to 2 and 2/3. So both of these are correct. Again, you just have to read what Math Excel is asking for. Improper fraction, which by the way, this is what most of your high school teachers are going to want as an answer anyway. Don't take it back to as long as it's not asking for a mixed number, if it's asking for an improper fraction or it doesn't specify, give an improper fraction. This is the answer most of your high school teachers are going to want anyway, is a reduced improper fraction. And again, I know this because I taught high school. Really the only time we wanted mixed numbers was if it was a real world situation and a mixed number made more sense to know. All right, moving on to our second problem. Now, when we look at this one, we don't have parentheses. And you may be saying, well, Mrs. Cartwright, where are we using distributive property here? Now, I showed you in another video how we could get rid of decimals and how we could make fractions into whole numbers, and that's where the distributive property comes in. I'm going to look for the least common denominator for all, if there's, this one only has one fraction, but if there are multiple fractions, I'm going to look for that least common denominator, that LCD, least common denominator. In this case, that least common denominator is going to be 4 because it's our only denominator. And so what we're going to do is we're going to multiply by the LCD. And I have to do it equally to both sides. So we're going to use that multiplication property of equality. We're going to multiply both sides by 4. And then in order to do that, I'm also going to distribute on the right-hand side. So 4 times 12 is 48. And then when we do 3/4 times 4, the 4s will divide out, leaving us with just 3/1, which equals 3. And so we end up with 3 in plus, because I've got to distribute. So I've multiplied to the 3/4 in. Now I'm going to multiply to the 5. 4 times 5 is 20. Do not forget you have to distribute equally. I can't just multiply to 1 and nothing else. But now my equation is with whole numbers and I don't have to worry about working with a fraction. So from here I can do the subtraction property of equality, and I'm going to subtract by 20 on both sides. 48 minus 20 is 28. And then I'm going to do my division property of equality, and we're going to divide by 3. And 3 does not divide into 28 equally, and they don't simplify. So my improper fraction would be 28/3. So 28/3 equals n, or n equals 28/3. If it were to ask for a mixed number, then 3 goes into 28 9 times, because that's 27. So then 28 minus 27 gives us a 1/3. So 28/3 is equal to 9 1/3. Again, preferred answer right here with the arrow. You just got to look at what Math Excel is asking for. In our next video, I'm going to go through a word problem. It's one of the slightly more difficult word problems for this. So it'd be nice probably to watch just so you have an example of how to step-by-step do the word problem from Math Excel. And yeah, or how to set up any problem that would end up being a distributive property type problem. So I'll see you there. Peace out.